Bon dia. Welcome back to the channel, viewers. Thanks for watching. This week I went to go and visit the biofarm, which I've mentioned in my property vlogs, which is... Oi! Hey, shitting! Which is in... Come on, this way! No, don't run away again! Oh boy, these shittens are a handful now. I'm moving them into the house because 2 nights ago, they disappeared and they went and got trapped in an outhouse. And luckily I found them, and luckily I managed to get them, climb up the wall and get them out of a tiny window. So now they're moving into the house and out of the outside bathroom, because I have homes for 2 of them. So there's still 2 available. So anyway, I went to go and meet Jay and his wife, Quinta Essential, incredible. It's not an organic farm, but he doesn't put any chemicals into his land, and he's built an incredible organic, and the produce that they grow, they sell in a shop in Vila Facaia, and he'll tell you more about it. So let's go and meet Jay. So you're not registered as an organic farm, but you don't put any chemicals into the land?
No, we don't use any chemicals. We make our own compost. We also make our own feeds, or some people call them compost teas. People often ask, what's the difference? So what's the difference between what you do, and permaculture and organic? The simple fact of the matter is, with regenerative agriculture, I don't break the ground.
Okay.
And so there's a myriad of creatures and microorganisms that live under there, much like ourselves. You don't like to be disturbed. And we believe that they are like the building blocks for everything that comes after. And so what we try and do is, rather than break the soil, we are actively building soil.
Okay.
And so everybody knows that through traditional farming techniques, with continual rotivation and the use of chemicals and pesticides and sprays, is a major contributor to soil erosion. And so what we kind of do here is, the easiest way to explain it is, we just try and help nature to do what nature does best.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tricky thing to embark on, because there are no shortcuts, and it does take time. In the fast-paced world that we live in, it's like that is often the resource that people have the least of, which is time. And so we felt it was important to try and put some of these practices that we'd heard about, I'd only heard about them up until 2.5 years ago, into actual practice, to see if it was a feasible thing. And it's taken us 3 years to turn when we bought this place, it was an olive grove with 80 trees in up the top, and that would traditionally be rotivated and sprayed, because the olive is king when it comes to agriculture around these parts. I'm pretty certain that the amount of olive trees you have is almost a status symbol within
Portugal.
Because it shows how capable you are of sustaining yourself. And so what we do is, rather than use a rotivator, I've got my trusty broad fork.
Okay, and how can you demonstrate on this piece of ground?
Yeah, so this isn't such a good bit, because I've had bags of compost laying here. And so, but essentially what you do is, that would get dug in.
Yeah.
Then you stand and you just work it backwards and forwards. Keep on going, and you just go down and down until I get to the absolute bottom. And what this is doing is, it's aerating, like breaking up underneath.
Yeah.
And so getting rid of compaction.
But it's not
disturbing the top.
Surface. Okay.
And so if you think of the soil as similar to your skin, and so it likes the same things. It likes to be held together. It likes to be protected from the sun. And so if you continually rotivate and break the soil, then you're exposing parts of it that it doesn't want exposed to the elements and to the sun. And so the sun bakes on the nutrients, and then the wind, this will become dust, and that will blow away. So what this does is it encourages pathways for air and oxygenation, which is great for if you're growing plants, but it also provides places for water to go. And so instead of water hitting compacted land and running off, it's got somewhere to go and it can sit. And so I've just done that there. When I'm preparing the beds, if you look at how long the tines are, I'd maybe move half the distance of the length of the tines. That would go in again. And so then I'm sure that everything underneath is no longer compacted. And then the reason it's taken us so long is because we wanted to bring in as few external inputs as possible, and making compost in big quantities takes quite a while. And so after I've laid this out, I put a former down, which I make out of wood, and then I'll fill it with our compost. And then the first stage is I try to plant some deep-rooted plants, say something like broad beans or favas. These are great. They've got a great root network, goes down deep, and it drags nitrogen up.
A nitrogen fixer.
Nitrogen fixer. So your nitrogen fixers are beans. Peas are also great for this. And so we'd let them run their course. And with traditional agriculture, what would happen then is you'd come and rotivate and you rip all the roots and everything out. And this is where all the microorganisms live. Your bacteria, protozoa, nematodes, microarthropods. And eventually, if all that's going well, then you start to develop a mycelium network. Mycelium is, I'm not a computer person, and I'm learning gardening, but it kind of reminds me of like the internet of Subterra. And so it's a communication device. And so recent thinking says trees and plants, they talk to each other.
Through the mycelium pathways.
Through the mycelium. And the mycelium becomes a facilitator. And so a tree would say, hey, I need some potassium. And the mycelium goes, haha, I'm massive, bro. I know where there's some. I'll get some to you. And then another plant will say, well, I need phosphorus and I need nitrogen. And they're kind of the fixers. Would that be a thing?
Facilitators?
Facilitator,
maybe,
and so, again, if you continually break the soil, this gets broken, or it all gets broken and it dies and the microorganisms die. And so we never cut a root out.
Okay, so they're just left in the ground.
That gets left in the ground. And then what we do after that point is I'd water it really heavily. And then you can either mulch it with whatever it is you've got to hand. Olive leaves are quite good and in abundance. Or we'd cover it with a weed mat. We like a weed mat because it allows water to go through.
And I guess it stops the evaporation of the moisture that's in the ground.
Yeah, and so you're kind of starting the composting process underground. And so I don't need any external bins or anything like that. I haven't got to turn anything. And the thing is, once that network of organisms is established, they're very much like ourselves, and they want the same things. They want airways, they want delivery of water, but they also want it that if there's an excess of water, it's got somewhere to go. And then much like ourselves, these creatures, they live, eat things, defecate, die. And the thing about having this network underneath the soil, as against using fertilizer, is it becomes instantly available nutrients for your plants. And so the other thing is it increases the health of your plants, and healthy plants don't get disease. And healthy plants are too strong for pests.
Okay.
And so
so then you need less pesticides, or you don't need to spray the plants to control the bugs that are on them because the plant is strong enough to do it for itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, as a frugal person, what this equates to is less inputs
Yep.
for an equal, or in terms of the amount, definitely equal. But I believe it's a better output, because then all of those animals and all the bacteria and everything, it's not just that they're around your plant, they are in your plant. And for our health, we also have these bacteria, and we have these microorganisms that are within us. And so eating food that has been grown in this way, I believe, has overall health benefits that just aren't possible if you are ingesting chemicals, which...
Or mass produced
Yeah.
farming kind of produce.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not that I think farmers or big agriculture is bad. It's like they are trying to feed a planet.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also the thing of they get very little choice, because for things to be included in the human food chain, it all has to be tested and approved. And once something is tested and approved, it becomes a preferred choice. And so farmers on a big scale, they have very few choices. The other thing that they generally don't have is the luxury of time. And everybody's saying that the environment is broken and agriculture is broken. It's not broken. It's very difficult to break a planet, but what it does need is some help. But that help takes time.
Okay, so I think we need to have a look at some of your work.
It'd be a pleasure.
Okay, where do you want to start?
I think we should start right at the beginning.
Okay.
And so, because we were building the shop and we were hoping that it'd be open a couple of months prior to now, and so we'd planted a lot of vegetables in readiness. I'm not going to say Portuguese bureaucracy is convoluted or difficult, but it certainly takes an amount of time. And so unfortunately, a lot of the vegetables that we grew are now, because of the sun and the season, they're going over. So over the next couple of days, as you can see, these were all cauliflowers.
Yep.
And you can see that I've cut these guys here. I'll have a look, because obviously, so what I do when I cut is I'll find the plant, and this is how easy it is with a no-dig system. You can literally put your fingers in. I'm not going to be able to find a root now, am I? But the root stays under there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but there's all of this goodness. And it's taken a lot of energy and effort and photosynthesis to make this. And so rather than throw this away, I'll feed some of it to my chickens.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll just lay this down on here.
Yep.
And so this is providing a couple of things. A, it's providing cover from the sun.
Yep.
And B, what I'm going to do, once I've laid this down as well, because my cloth is so deep, I'm going to do the same with this broccoli, and it will just be laid down.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you'd imagine, there's my root there. I'll get my pliers, and that goes there. But the rest of the root system is still inside there. And so what's going on underneath is undisturbed. This will be laid down. I'll water this almost to flooding, like a really deep, heavy water. And then I'll cover it. And so this again provides protection from the sun, and the darkness will help all of this to start breaking down. It might be that when I want to plant, I'll have to cut these bits out.
Yep.
But I can shred these, and these can go into my compost. And I'll cover this for a month. And then after a month, that will become quite rich and loamy from all of the nutrients
Organic
and everything.
matter that's breaking down.
Yeah, and the other added advantage is putting back in exactly the same place
What's been taken
what
out.
it's taken out.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so everyone's seen The Lion King with the circle of life. And, you know, it's like
Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata. And so then from there, because they're quite deep rooted, we'd probably follow that with something a little bit shallower,
Yeah.
because then we can get it in between. And so I think I'm probably going to plant maybe some radishes in here.
Okay.
To get those going. And so prior to planting beetroots, this had cabbages in. And so I've added absolutely no fertiliser whatsoever to this. All they've had is water from my well. These are the kind of results that we're getting.
Wow. That's fabulous. It looks delicious.
Thank you. I mean, and so in this one, I made a mistake, as I often do. Mainly because we don't like to bring too much in, and so I cut the grass, and then I used the cuttings as mulch, because we figured like covering soil is the most important thing. And so I've grown some really nice grass in amongst my tomatoes, which some people would be upset about, but I don't think that my tomatoes
are suffering.
Are too upset.
No, they look like they're pretty happy to me.
And so again, nothing's been sprayed, nothing's been fed. There you go, mate, that's your one.
Treats.
Hey.
Rewards.
Sweet treats. You're very lucky. I don't get many of those.
Your daughter.
She knows exactly the state of ripeness of pretty much every.
That's incredible.
Strawberry.
The flavour is incredible.
It's just letting nature do its thing.
And you use the shade netting to keep the extreme heats off the plants?
Yeah, keep the extreme heat off the plant and try and solar gain. And so if I was to water now,
yep,
you get water on the leaves. That then acts as a magnifying glass
and scorches
and
the
it will
leaves?
scorch and burn.
Okay.
And so we wouldn't end up with things like wonderful chicory, which is a bitter, which is a food source which has left most people's lives, but is absolutely essential. It provides lots of minerals and nutrients that the human body needs. And here we've got lots of different tomatoes. There's some rainbow chard in there. As you go, do you want to come down the actual tunnel?
Go on then.
Yeah, come on.
I don't know whether my back will hold out, but...
Oh, you can kind of stand up in here.
Oh yeah, you can.
And so these are Coruscant de Bois.
Oh.
I mean, that's got another month to go yet.
Okay.
I think that might be half a kilo of tomato.
Wow,
once it's
they're
done.
whoppers.
And then more rainbow chard down here.
On the other side?
This is a classic self-set.
Aborbida.
Aborbida. Well, this is a courgette, this one.
Is it?
But these, if you come around this side, these are a round courgette. And so I'm going to apologise for our vegetarian and vegan friends, but I really like these. I cut the top off of it, scoop the seed part out, fill it with
mince, pork,
yep. Pork, lemon, ginger. I like Southeast Asian flavours.
Yep.
And this just really lends itself to it. These are Chinese leaves. Eventually, we're hoping that these will develop into full-blown heads, and we're going to use these to make kimchi, which is one of our favourite ferments.
Okay.
And then just the other side, we've got squashes. You can see tomatoes popping out of there. I think there's some corn, some mealie in there as well.
Can we get out at that end?
Yeah, we can get out this end.
I did wonder how you traverse underneath these. That's how you do it.
Well, it's all about trying to make it as easy for yourself as possible. And so I've got to get in there and water. I'm busily trying to put an irrigation system in, but now the shop's built,
You've had your hands full, haven't you?
things are getting into the right place.
Okay.
And then just here, again, like you can see, we like to just mix stuff up. And so
Peppers.
there's some peppers, some bell peppers. Some of these I'll eat when they're green, but if I can get them to red or yellow, that would be amazing. But obviously, the longer you leave them, the more chance there is that something can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are sweet potatoes.
Oh, they're beautiful leaves, aren't they?
Really, really lovely
pretty
plant.
flower, but
Yeah.
a plant.
Really lovely.
Yep.
And then as we come up this side, standard alface. You got to grow lettuce. And again, all these tomatoes are self-set. There's a few weeds in my pathways. And if you look down here, all of this is basil. Basil and tomatoes are best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Not only on your dinner plate, but
Right in the
also,
ground.
yeah,
Yeah.
they love to grow together. And then rainbow chard.
I mean, everything does look incredibly healthy. There's very little signs of any kind of bugs eating the veggies. I mean, I'm sure you do get some, but it's
It's inevitable. Like I say, everything's got to eat. But so in monoculture, like I say, plants send out signals. And so if you have an abundance of one signal, the natural result of that is something will come to eat it. And so the more of one thing you have in one small space, that's where you stand a chance of attracting a blight of some kind of pest, like disease or pest or blight. And so if you mix and match stuff up, then that signal isn't so strong. And each plant attracts different things, and some of those things like to eat other things.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it's like a classic case of example is with the olive trees. There's a fly that gets inside the olives and puts a hole in and can destroy your crop. But there's also, we have fig trees, and every fig, for a fig to be a fig, a wasp has to go inside.
Yep.
And that grows, and it just so happens that wasp eats the flies that blight the olive trees. And so I've only found this out recently, so one of the things I'm doing is taking cuttings of my figs, and I'm hoping that eventually for every 6 olive trees I've got, I'm going to plant a fig, which we've got 80, 90 olive trees. And so because we have a shop, that's a decent amount of figs.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's two in one for me. It's like, A, I get to help control a problem without the use of chemicals or sprays. And B, I might end up with another saleable product, which is actually delicious. And so, here, I just want to show you this. I'm going to bite into this, but so that's a beetroot. We can't really see it because I've bitten it rather than cut it. But it has beautiful red and white concentric rings. And so when stuff tastes that good and looks that good, it's got to be doing you good, right?
Yes.
It has to.
So you've got a load of trees down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Should we go and have a look at that?
Yeah, be a pleasure. The list of fruit trees. So every single tree on this property is fruit bearing. So from peach, nectarine, plum, pear, oranges, clementines, tangerines, lemons, castagna,
Chestnut.
chestnut.
That's the chestnut, isn't it?
A really important food source in Portuguese history.
Mm-hmm.
We've got maybe 15 apple trees, 15 different varieties of apple. Some are really good for eating, but if I'm completely honest, we generally mash them up and turn them into cider because it keeps for a long time.
Okay,
That's my excuse.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay. And talking of alcohol,
yeah.
there's also your grapevines.
Yeah. And so I've got approximately 350 vines with a selection of Touriga Nacional and Serra variety grapes. We produced last year just shy of 300 litres of a completely natural, unsprayed. We didn't spray anything on the grapes. No copper sulphate, no cal de Bordelais, no sulphur. The way we kind of do this is we prune our vines very, very hard. And so I will grow maybe 8 to 10 bunches of grapes on a well-established vine, whereas a lot of people will try and grow like 20 or 30. And so we get a lot more airflow. And so the more airflow you get, the less humidity build-up you get between the leaves. And so the less humidity and less water, the less chance there is that mildew will settle on your plants. And then when we make the wine, the only thing that goes in the barrel is grapes. We don't add any sugar, we don't add any yeast, and we have our wine tested periodically to check to see that fermentation has finished. And so if it's cold, that might take longer, but it means that we're not adding sulfur tablets and sulfides into our wine. The added advantage of this is, A, we're getting a product that we know exactly what has gone into it, and B, it means you can drink maybe more than one bottle, and in the morning you don't have a headache.
You don't feel rough.
You feel less rough.
Oh, okay.
Let's say that. It's like, I'm not advocating drinking lots of wine, but
But if you're going to have a party, then that's a better way of doing it.
And so this is where it breaks down and why we can't claim to be organic, because the people who had this place before, they did spray their vines and they would apply pesticides and fertilizers. It's taken us 3 years to kind of wean, especially the vines, off of that process, because it weakens the plant and then they become dependent on it. And so the first year we tried to make wine, I'm going to be honest, it was pretty woeful. We had a bit more success the following year, and then this year just gone, which was during the drought year, and so we never water our grapes, anything like that, because it's good for us. So if you've got small grapes, then the sugars are much more concentrated, whereas if you've got bigger grapes that are bloated with water, then the sugars become more dissipated, and so then you'd have to add sugar. But because we grew a lot less grapes per vine compared to our neighbours, there was a stark contrast. And on one side of the fence, I've got like beautiful looking bunches of grapes, and on the other side, I've got 8 beautiful bunches, and on the other side of the fence, my neighbour's got 40 bunches of raisins, because there just wasn't enough water to support what was going on.
Yeah. So this is your orchard down here.
Yeah, and so, like I say, down there we've got pear, plum, two different kinds of plum, a couple of different types of pear. There's quite a few of our apple trees down there. On a decent year, we might get 2 tons of chestnuts.
What do you do with them?
So before we had the shop, I'd sell them to market traders. And so one of the first things we did when we came here was we registered as a family farm, which if you want to sell produce, excess produce, it's really imperative that you do this, because then you get a numero de horta de productor, which is basically saying that you're registered, and that's all linked back to your NIF number and everything like that. And so, yes, we could have just sold them, but the thing is, my Portuguese neighbours who don't have that number, if they do that and they get caught, then it can be trouble. And so we just took the stance that if we were going to try and do this, then we wanted to go straight down the line.
Amazing. Thank you, Jay. I don't know whether we should head back up to the shop and see whether all the customers... We've been trying to film in the shop, but it's just been full of customers all day. So should we go up and see whether we can have a quick chat in there?
Fantastic.
And then after that, I'll get a drone up and show this beautiful farm from the sky.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Okay, so this is the shop.
Yeah.
And you built this yourself?
Yeah, well, I'll say myself, but self-sufficiency does actually take quite a few people. I had some really great help from when my ambition outweighed my talent.
Do you want to thank all the people that helped?
I'd really like to thank all the man cavers who have been amazing. They came down from Lisbon and gave me a hand. Mark from our farm, Portugal, who almost allowed me to break him when
he did tell me
when the concrete had to be done.
Yeah.
And then I've got some wonderful German friends, Christoph and Felix, who are incredible carpenters and gave me a massive help because I know steel and aluminium, but these guys really know what they're doing with wood, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without them.
Okay. And this is just full of mainly your produce?
Well, we have a big spread, and so if over in this section we have, like I was saying, the produce which is the same as you'd get at your local market, and it's priced accordingly. And so anybody who is happy with that kind of food, it's like we want to be able to cater for everybody.
Yeah.
This section here is all of our certified organic stuff. We've been very lucky. We've found some great producers and a great distributor. Like I said earlier, they're few and far between and worth their weight in gold.
But it's growing here.
It is starting to grow. It's starting to gain traction.
Take
yeah.
hold, yeah.
And so we would like to help push that forward. And yes, I grow regeneratively, and I can stand and expound why I believe that this is the best way. But the simple fact of the matter is, if you look at any of this produce, it is incredible stuff. And, you know, people deserve to be nourished in a way that benefits their bodies. Everybody knows that the gut is intrinsically linked to things like mental health and general well-being. And, you know, the old adage, you can only get out what you put in, I think rings true. And so regardless of whether it's market veg or organic veg or some of our produce from our farm, we just think if you can give people the very best opportunity to be able to look after themselves, then it's got to be beneficial. Over here, this is some of our olive oil. Wow, looks like we sold a bit, which is nice.
Brilliant.
And so this is from our olive trees, and this we only have so much per year, but it is a really lovely product. We're very lucky to have it. And then we have things like elderflower cordial.
Nice.
This is red wine vinegar.
Yep.
Apple cider vinegar, and this is a quince vinegar. And so I don't know if many people are familiar with a quince. It's kind of most famous for being turned into marmalade, and people quite often have it with manchego cheese.
Yes.
And then this is our wine. Bibi, can you go outside a second?
She's okay.
Yeah.
She's okay. Yeah, we've got 4 quince trees, so yeah, they're incredible. But at first we were just like, what on earth is this strange fruit?
It's a great fruit. It keeps forever as well.
Yeah.
And then this is the wine that come from our grapevines, completely natural wine. We accept we're not going to trouble the French or the Italian noble wines or anything like that.
Yep.
It is what it is, but it's kind of fresh and pure, and so we really like it. And then the other thing we do is that we have, come up here then. The other thing is we like to try and champion other local producers.
Yep.
And so these are some great guys who live just out by the lake,
Gabriel.
banging out incredible blueberries. We're really lucky to make their acquaintance. I mean, just look at the colour.
Is that are there €2.50 for those tubs?
€2.50
better go and
for
get
this
my
tub.
wallet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, because there's less food miles, and it's got the human touch. It's like it's not just for us to profit. We like
You help the
everybody down the chain to get the deal that you should be getting. And then down here again,
Local cheeses.
got some fantastic German friends who produce this cheese. They've got a flock or a herd of maybe 80 goats,
Okay.
and they make this incredible cheese. And it's just one of the things that we think should be celebrated about this area. We believe that Vila Facaia and the Greater Pedrega Grande area has a great tradition of food, and it's like we think that it's something that other people from other areas should become aware of.
Well, thank you, Jay. It's been an absolutely wonderful day. People can find your shop here in Vila Facaia. They can find you on Facebook as well.
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Quinta-Esencial.
Yep.
It's got all of our opening hours and everything. This weekend is a special event. In general, we're not going to be open at weekends. In fact, we're not open at the weekends. If you want to come down to the shop, our opening hours are Wednesday to Friday.
Yep.
Or quarta, quinta, sexta-feira, between the hours of 9 and 6. Please be aware, we are shut for lunch between 1 and 2.